Kimberly, and I'm here to tell y'all about my 1-month Europe trip. I just want to tell y'all about why I did it, some experiences, and what I learned from it. And I'm really just hoping that this video will encourage you to challenge your fears and to really go take your own solo trip. So this past summer, I did my 1-month Europe trip, and I started it on July 18th and it went until August 20th. And the reason why I took this trip was because I had traveled last summer in group settings, and I really enjoyed it, but I always kind of felt like I had to compromise some parts of my travel. I had a blast, but I just felt like I always had to compromise and I couldn't really do everything that I wanted to do. So, and I really just wanted to reflect more on my life, and I think that solo travel was the best thing that I could have done. So, like I said, I started on July 18th and I started in Barcelona, Spain. And then after that, I went to Florence, Italy. And then I went to Milan, Italy. And then I went to Geneva, Switzerland, Bern, Switzerland, Strasbourg, France, and then Paris. And then I flew over to Dublin and then stayed there for a bit, and then went to Galway, Ireland, Kilkenny, Ireland, back to Dublin. Ended up in Berlin, which is where I currently am to do my internship. So it was kind of strange how I wasn't entirely scared about this trip, and I think because I had been to Europe for 2 months the summer prior, I kind of knew what to expect. I knew that Europe was generally safe, so I didn't have too many fears about my safety. But I was a little bit nervous about meeting people and about making friends because I am an extroverted person. So for me, being completely alone for a month, I think would be the really challenging part for me. But just because I knew that just because I was scared of this, I shouldn't just not do it or deter from it. So when I arrived to Barcelona, I remember just being super nervous because I realized that I was actually doing this for a month. Like, there was no going back. And so I was really anxious about finding my hostel safely and everything like that. But I made it to my hostel fine. And then during check-in, I was sitting alone, and then 2 Australian guys actually approached me, and then we ended up talking, and I'm still Facebook friends with y'all now, so if y'all are watching this, hey. Yeah, so they instantly just started talking to me, and I was just kind of sweaty and hot and exhausted, but they were so nice to me, and we ended up looking at Barcelona together that afternoon. And then when I got back to my hostel room, this is my first hostel experience ever, so I actually didn't realize that the beds were assigned. So I put my stuff in the wrong locker and took the wrong bed, and the 3 girls that were there were totally cool about it, and they were from Turkey, and I instantly became friends with them and basically did all the rest of my Barcelona events with them, and I still talk to them to this day. So it was amazing how just challenging that fear of that I'm gonna be completely alone, and just seeing that that was kind of false was really pivotal for me during my travels. And I found that I was never alone. I had moments where I just had to sit back and just really be alone because I was constantly making new friends, and it was amazing. I think that the people that I met on this trip were really what made the trip. So if you go into your trip with an open mind and an open heart, and you just accept people into your life, I think that you'll be surprised by the people that you will encounter on this trip. And it was just crazy how I personally believe in God, and I just feel like God really watched over me on this trip. And it was just crazy to see how he really made sure that I was safe. And so there was this one time, I'm sorry parents if this story freaks you out, I definitely didn't tell y'all, but there's this one time I was in Paris, France, and with a friend that I made in Florence, and it was actually a really crazy story, but that's another story time in itself. And so we decided that we were gonna look at Paris at night, and we took some bottles of wine with us, and we were just walking around looking at Paris at night, drinking wine, and everything was great. We were definitely tipsy. And so I was actually staying in a suburb of Paris. I wasn't staying in a hostel, I was staying in a hotel in a suburb of Paris. So looking at the timetable for the trains, and it said that the last train was leaving at 4 a.m. So I was not worried at all. So me and my friend Abby, we were just looking at Paris. We were like crying, it was really emotional. And I look at the timetable and I'm like, Abby, no worries, I'm gonna get back home on time. And so we depart our ways because she was staying in a hostel and I was staying, you know, in the suburb of Paris. And I go to my train, I'm just waiting. And I remember talking to my friend back home on the phone, and literally no train is coming. And there's something in French on the time board, and I thought maybe it meant that the last one had already left, but I wasn't sure. And so the French security people start coming and just locking everything down, and I'm just panicked. I used all my cash euros on me for waffles and carousel rides for me and Abby, and so I didn't have any cash on me, and so I couldn't take a taxi home. And so I'm like freaking out, and the French security starts speaking to me in French, and I was just like, I don't know, I'm not from here. I was relying on the train to get home. Long story short is that they ended up telling me to follow them, and I walked with them while they closed down the Paris Central Station. You know, they're closing everything down, and they take me to the control room, and I'm seeing everything behind the scenes. And they end up clocking out, and one guy just personally just took me back to my hotel. And it was literally the sweetest thing ever, and all they told me was, you don't have to repay us, just tell everybody back in Texas that the French are the best. And so I'm making this video to say that the French are the best, and literally saved my life, and they were so kind, and they didn't have to do anything. And I think what I learned is that, you know, I've always been taught to be scared of people and to not have faith in people, but sometimes you really do just have to put your faith in humanity. And it was literally the most life-changing experience of my life. I'm just so grateful for those French security guards that just took me home out of the kindness of their hearts. And I was just crying, and they were comforting me, and they were like, oh, he's done much dumber stuff before, don't worry about it. So seriously, it was incredible. And then another time, when I was in Dublin, Ireland. I just gotten back from Galway, but I had to go from Galway to Dublin to get to Kilkenny. So I took this long bus ride from Galway to Dublin. I was in Dublin, and I was trying to get to Kilkenny, and it was pouring rain. And if anybody knows about Ireland, it rains there all the time. And I had this huge backpack on me, and I had my small pack on the front, and it's just pouring rain. And I tried to get on the bus to go to Galway that I was told to get on, and they weren't leaving for another 2 hours. And so I was just like, shoot, what do I do? And I was like, Starbucks, definitely have to go to a Starbucks. And so I run into the Starbucks, and me and this man just make eye contact, and he's just looking at me like this poor rat, like this poor wet rat. And I make eye contact with him, and I'm just laughing because at this point, I just find it all humorous. I wasn't stressed, it was just kind of funny. And so I make eye contact with him, and I just start laughing, and he starts laughing, and I go, welcome to Ireland, right? And he goes, whereabouts are you from? And I said, I'm from Texas. And he goes, no way, I'm from Texas too. And he literally, it was crazy. So he's from San Antonio, Texas, and he moved to Ireland and had with his wife who's Irish, who lives in Kilkenny with his kids. And so he's like very familiar with the bus system and the train system to Kilkenny. And so he literally just dropped everything. He dropped his laptop. He just left all of his work and then walked with me outside in the pouring rain to this bus that he knew would be leaving very soon. And it was cheaper and it was amazing. And so he literally just dropped everything aside to help a fellow Texan, and it was the sweetest thing ever. And I'm just seriously so grateful for the people I met while I was traveling. And if you and I encountered each other during my travels and you're watching this video, seriously, thank you so much, because you impacted my life in such a great way that I can't even explain. I seriously learned so much about myself during this 1 month. A lot about myself as a person, and I learned that I was doing things not necessarily for myself, but I was doing things to be viewed a certain way. So it was seriously such an eye-opener, and I realized that, you know, you can't just live your whole life being miserable doing something just because for others. I learned that this life is too short and there's too much in this world to just be unhappy. And so really I just learned that I don't have to take the traditional route in life, or I don't have to stay where I am, and that there's always a way out. And traveling just enabled me to really use those problem solving skills to just really figure out a way to get out of bad situations. And it really just taught me that everything will work out in the end. So I really just want to encourage you women, especially if you are thinking about doing a solo trip, to really just go ahead for it. I promise everything will be okay. Just, you know, use really simple safety rules and everything. And I really just want to encourage y'all to take that leap of faith and to take your own trip, because you never know what will happen, and you don't want to live your whole life wondering what if you had done it. So I really just want to encourage you to do that. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. I'll see y'all later. Bye.